sì, una cosa alla fine delle due era previsto di parlare con Giannettino, direttore dell'Accademia Italiana, e dice poi siamo in ritardo, cioè basterà dire ai presenti qua se possono restare per il fondo intervento di Salvatore. Gianni Latino, direttore Accademia Italiana. Vado a prendermi la sì. Direttore Accademia delle Arti Digitali. Io direi che possiamo...
Aber das ist interessant, vielleicht können wir uns doch auch darüber unterhalten, wie man das so einbauen kann in größere Zusammenhänge oder in Verbindung mit anderen Situationen. Das ist mir auch immer wichtig, dass Schule nicht so isoliert ist.
Ich versuche, gut, wir haben, es gibt FKL-streaming2, l'histoire des cités.
Vado a prendermi
Geschichte vorgeschlagen haben, ein Projekt für die kommen und eine Audiopostkarte. Da wäre die Möglichkeit auch, historische Dokumente hat und wir die Dokumente über Dinge gab es damals und das
Genau so. So eine Übersicht habe ich auch mal gemacht.
Ich habe mega viel Lust, was zu machen. Das hat mit meiner Doktorarbeit zu tun. Das ist ein bisschen stark, wenn ich dann nicht an die Zeit schaue. Also das ist schon mein Ziel. Noch der Doktorarbeit, dass ich noch weitermachen kann und nicht aber bis ich weiter soziale Projekte mache.
Genau, die sozialen Projekte. Wir haben es mal in unserem Stadtteil gemacht mit Denkmälern. Mit Denkmälern untersucht und Künstlern zusammen, dann mit Biologen und so weiter, mit Historikern und haben dann sozusagen das Soundambiente für die Entstehung des Denkmals ausgedacht. Und haben überlegt, was gab es noch für Knochen in der Zeit, was haben sie zu tun mit diesem Denkmal, mit diesem Ort und solche Sachen. Die sind alles das, was die junge Leute auch verortet, nicht digital. Ist sehr sinnvoll, um diese Loslösung von diesen zu nehmen. Also man nimmt ja diese Loslösungen zu und wir müssen ihnen Angebote in der Schule etwas mehr verantworten, ihnen zu sagen, das Digital ist genauso wichtig wie das Reale. Vergesst das, aber ihr müsst auch Instrumente haben, um das Digitale zu erfassen, um das Reale zu erfassen. Und das ist
un petit peu stressée.
Good morning and welcome to this first panel session of sustainability. I'm pleased to introduce to you Magali Bertrand and Anke Haur. Magali Bertrand is a teaching assistant and a PhD student at the School for French as Foreign Language at the University of Lausanne. She has an expertise in sociolinguistic education and language policies. Anke Haun has an expertise in musicology, school music, Germanistic, and in particular in early music and early instruments and singing. We have 20 minutes for each talk, and then for each talk, 10 minutes for discussion. You are welcome.
Thanks a lot.
We are pleased to listen to your talk.
Thank you. It's my first symposium and I'm very happy to be here because I don't often get a chance to share my little project about around soundscape. It has actually become a true part of my PhD that is dedicated to immersion and immersive programs for language learning. This is also the first time I've spoken in English in front of an audience, so I thank you in advance for your understanding and your patience. You can see on the screen our sheep at the University of Lausanne. They eat the grass, but I'll speak about another kind of sustainability, but there you can get an idea of our soundscape on campus. I will tell you about an experiment I do in my French class at the École de Français Langue Étrangère. that is still in progress, and that relies quite a lot on my previous life as a trainer who often organized for French-German groups activities that come under experiential learning, Erlebnispädagogik, and then as a student of social linguistics. My master's thesis concerned subjectivity and language, and especially the desire of language of Yiddish learners. To begin with some context, I will comment on the information you see on the screen. I teach adults 4 hours a week. They live in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, mostly near Lausanne. I am French myself, and my accent does not match the local ones. There are usually between 12 and 20 students in the class. 2/3 are women. Their countries of origin, ages, and educational background are very diverse. My students study French intensively for a year, and they have every imaginable reason for doing so. Their level of French is A2 and should be B1 at the end of the year. B1 is the minimum requirement to start studies at uni. The sustainability of learning outcomes during that and after that year is a real topic. Because the winter break is 2 months long, we often have the impression that the students have forgotten everything when they come back for the spring semester. And I personally think that we need to think about not only what can happen during that break, but also about the transferability of what happens in class to the outside world, so to speak. And beyond usual communicative activities, I have chosen to root some activities in their personal experience, involving their bodies and senses, and I'll develop on this later. So this course is mandatory each semester. I only teach in spring because I'm a PhD candidate. And apart from the usual language practice in this type of atelier pratique with exercises and tests, there is a so-called long project which offers the framework of the project I will describe in a minute. Sorry. It runs in 4 steps over 12 to 13 weeks. During the introduction, I present the project and the idea of paying more attention to the acoustic dimension of language in order to balance the possible insecurity they feel about speaking French. We do exercises. Some of them come from Schaeffer's manual of sound education, and I created others. I won't present them now, but just for you to know, I do a kind of vocabulary training specifically for this project. The overall goal of this introductory phase is to initiate the decentering from the visual aspects and to attain a better capacity to hear what is around us. And the focus is not yet on language. It's better now.
You don't see the presentation anymore.
Okay, I will just try again. Better? No. Still nothing. Okay. Do you see a screen at all? Nothing. It's black. Okay. It shouldn't be. Everything.
Screen, there's a red phone. I don't know techniques here in the room. Processing status still right. Up green.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't matter really.
I go calling for technicians.
Yeah, it's just the titles for you not to fall asleep. So I will just continue. So we have this first introductory phase. Yeah, and then we have what I call a mini project. That's the okay. So you don't see a kind of chronology. We have 2 to 3 weeks for the introduction, 2 to 3 weeks for the part I will describe now, and then 5-6 weeks, and then just one lesson. So it's more or less the chronology of the project. And during the second phase, it's a mini project. They have work to do in class and also between classes. And everything is orientated to the production of an audio postcard. I make them produce it for different reasons. We need a technical test for recording, and I want them to experiment in audio creation without recording their voices, speaking French, in order to gain confidence in the technical part first before moving on to voice recording and collective work. And I also want them to think about communication, sending and receiving a message, narrativity, point of view, and also from a semiotic perspective about audio signs and how we decipher them or not. First, they have to listen in their own area where they live and come back to class with notes, because we also work on note-taking in French. And then we discuss which sounds are pleasant and which are not, and I ask them to write a statement of intent for an audio postcard, une note d'intention. And the principle is the same as for a postcard that you write on holiday, but instead of having views of the city, we hear sounds of a specific place. And instead of having words written at the back, we have the structure and the transitions between the sounds. And the idea is that not only the sound of the place convey information about where we are and what happens there, but also the way they come to us and convey meaning to us listeners. The choice of the 3 to 4 sounds and the transition between those sounds, they are also part of the narrative. And I want students to think about this when they plan and record their postcards, but also when they hear others' postcards. And I also want them to include these reflections in their preparation, because we use the technique of in-camera editing, le tourné-monté. In concrete terms, it looks like this: you record at one place, you pause, you go to the next location, you record in the same file, you pause again, you go to the next location, you record, etc. And at the end, you have only one file with 3 or 4 sequences of different places, and that's why we call it in-camera editing, because once the last sequence has been shot or recorded, the film or the file is ready. This low-cost technique has many advantages, and also in terms of time and competence needed. Some of our students struggle with this low-cost technique has many advantages, and also in terms of time and competence needed. Some of our students struggle with this low-cost technique has many advantages, and also kind of collateral benefit from the perspective of language practice. We close this step by listening to all the podcasts together from a critical perspective. I expect them to say which effects are like time and importance during some of our students the rhythm and the last part. The whole class produces its own soundscape. We close this step by listening to all the podcasts from a creation. I expect them, it has a relative effects on like time and the first word we develop the rhythm. They record them in the whole architecture, feedback on the pronunciation and soundscape, and they also have to provide listening I expect them, it has a relative effects on time. In the end, when we different in one place, and I expect For example, we hear listening and moving through during this part, for example, and finally, a contextual element related to the pandemic and the lockdowns. Of course, since it's a language class, specific speech acts have to be practiced, but I won't go into detail on this matter. Since I teach at university for the past 5 years, I have noticed that even our classes and exercises around the spoken language are quite focused on the written word. That's usually how we evaluate if students have understood an oral exercise. We ask them to answer written questions and to write a short paragraph. And when they take the oral production exam, they have to describe a picture. And I wanted to try something else, and started with 3 difficulties the students may encounter. 2 difficulties are related to French itself, the distance between the spoken language and the written language, and this distance does not only depend on the degree of formality, the distance between the acoustic signal and the orthography of the same word. And then there is something what we call linguistic insecurity. It's one of the key concepts of social linguistics, and I will keep on this part because we run a little bit late. So the definition of linguistic insecurity in my translation could be a tension between a real competence to speak and a realization ideal. And since it's an ideal, one way to lower the insecurity is to listen to effective practice, to compare our representation to reality. And that's where we need observation. By doing so, the students will be able to take stock of French variation of multilingualism in Lausanne. Hence, their own way of speaking might become more normal to their ears. Regarding the 2 difficulties I mentioned about French, I have considered that my class, some hours, could be a space of experimentation with language where the written form does not play a big role. So to sum up, my diagnosis, so to speak, was possible linguistic insecurity and difficulties in learning and pronunciation, possibly because of a focus on the written word, meaning written language and orthography. Therefore, observation of the local soundscape and oral practice could be a way to work on that. And by confronting representations with observation, we already train our intercultural competence, understood as a capacity to decenter oneself and to deal with the unknown. In addition, becoming better acquainted with the specific social place at university and in Lausanne, as we can do through observations like ethnographers do, that also contributes to intercultural competence, understood this time as a capacity to mediate between different contexts. So I've talked about the obstacles I wanted to address and the link with intercultural competences. I'd like now to end shortly with 2 outcomes from the pandemic, because it also shaped the long project I designed. On the one hand, because of the previously almost unheard soundscape during lockdowns, which people very likely noticed, and I can elaborate on their sensory experience of soundscape. On the other hand, because a new inner monologue that might have also appeared during this time. And I wanted to work on this because often students don't realize that they can talk to themselves in French during their groceries, taking a shower, and we take into account that our students are in immersion, but some of them are not allowed to work, and some of them speak very little at work. And how much of an immersion is it if you only speak and hear French in class, like if you speak another language at home or if you live alone? And 2 years ago and last year, there were, of course, social motivations for this project because of lockdowns. And after the period after lockdowns, but it's not actual anymore, and I won't speak about that, but being away from a screen was a big reason to make them work differently. So considering all of this, I have conceived this project to fit the linguistic goals of the class, focus on orality, practice, and the challenges I have just raised. Apart from the notions coming from musicology and sociolinguistics, this project owes a lot to anthropology and field methods, as well as to experiential pedagogy. Since they are key to transferability, therefore sustainability of the learning outcomes of my project, I will now shortly and partially develop this theme. My main intention is to align language practice with its bodily and physical dimension. That is to consciously experience language and speech as a body technique, to quote the French anthropologist Marcel Mauss. We hear spoken languages, we verbalize them, it's a technique of the body. And for the short time of this long project, I want to focus on this instead of the written aspects of French. So that's why we do exercises and listening walks. That's why we think about how we almost unconsciously associate a sound to a specific meaning. Let's think about the onomatopoeia we say when we feel pain. That's I think that it helps to realize how we are culturally, semiotically, so to speak, constructed as social beings. On another level, the field work they do in our building or for the audio postcard, like ethnographers, is one way to aim for transferability because they can use this practical knowledge and again observe, analyze acoustic signals and speech acts in order to act themselves in French. So working explicitly in class on the meta level of the tasks give them tools to reproduce this experimentation outside the classroom. And the description of day-to-day operations paves the way to acquire, or of course to reinforce, a kind of routine to decipher mental operation of categorization. Concretely, when we say in class, j'entends le métro, we have actually undergone a deduction from sounds we hear and from knowledge we have about the proximity of the station, the time of the day, therefore the probability that the train might be passing by right now. In the end, we know that we have heard the metro. And thinking about categorization enhances the intercultural competence of the student. This project wasn't meant to be an illustration of action-oriented approach in language didactics, but that's certainly the result. My personal orientation comes from active pedagogy and to some extent experiential learning. But since the action-oriented approach has no consistent theoretical basis, I don't feel epistemologically torn, so to speak. Experiential learning, very shortly. The point is that the outcomes of one experience, organized, following a certain pattern, assessed, can be transferred to another field of life. So that's experiential learning. So there is a kinship with what I do, but not more. What I think I do is that I offer the students a possibility to live an experience that goes step by step with moments of reflection and feedback so that they transfer it to outside the classroom. The transfer does not only concern the capacity of building sentences in French, but also the feeling of being legitimized to speak French as foreigners and for some of them as refugees in the local soundscape. And having heard the local multilingualism, the variation of French, and hearing their voice in that soundscape should lower their linguistic insecurity. So these were the principles of the project, and now comes the reality. According to German literature, there is no evidence of a transfer of learning outcomes of activities coming under experiential learning. And I haven't read enough yet about cognitive transfer generally to be sure that this project is theoretically strong enough. Beyond that, the question remains to me of how do we assess a potential change in intercultural competence or linguistic insecurity through a semester, or assess a greater attention to their oral environment. I also face limitations because of their language level at this point. Even though I try to phrase the evaluation with questions addressing specific aspects one after the other, what we deal with is quite complex, and some students understand more or less the tasks they have to do, but not necessarily the underlying philosophy, so to say. And sometimes I feel like they don't take it really seriously because we don't write much, and because it's a creative approach, and there we have also an intercultural aspect about representation of university and the lesson I do. But the whole collective project and everything the students implement to fulfill the task are in any case in line with the expectations of their program. They have to be able to describe the world around them, to express opinions and to debate, and that is what we do. In addition, they had a chance to become more aware of their way of learning French, or of their embodied experience of language and attitudes toward auditive aspects, but they could also become more aware of sound generally, of linguistic variation and of multilingualism in Lausanne. So I'd be happy to hear your remarks now and maybe answer your questions if you have some. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. Now it's time for a question. You can ask questions in English, Italian, French. Potete porre domande in italiano, inglese, tedesco, Deutsch ist auch gut. Beide sprechen Deutsch. Ja. Domande? Questions?
In which way the parents made the feedback to the activities of those things? You have a background in the family. I am interested in this. What you do in the lessons. Sometimes it's very important to have the background of the parents in the family.
I don't know their parents. The question was about.
In short, is there the feedback from the families and positive feedback for this wonderful activities? It would be an enrichment for the family also, I think so.
Well, I don't have any contact with the family. Usually my students have children on their own and they are from 4 to 20 years old. I have like mostly adults in the class, but that's a very good question actually, because I should ask them as well when they do, for example, when they record the audio postcard at home or in the neighborhood, I could ask them if they involve the children or what they think about what they are doing, or maybe the people they live with, if they live in a shared flat or something. That's a good question. Yeah. I remember one student, he did the sound walk with his son, and the son was saying something about what they heard, and then he recorded this as well. So that was one way to involve the children. But yeah, I will take that with me for this semester. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? I come forward. Ich bin neugierig, was Sie vielleicht gelernt haben durch diese Projekte, so von dem Soundscape, was vorher nicht bekannt war. So what did you learn through this project of the soundscape by listening to the audio postcards or the projects from the students?
Shall I answer in English or from? That's a very good question. I think the first thing I can think about now is how little they understood what I wanted to do. So it helped me every year to improve the way I describe the activities and the tasks they have to do. Because sometimes I think they don't see the point in a language class to hear and write something about soundscapes, and because they don't have the impression. You see, that there's the point of the content of the class, what we do during the task and the meta level. And I think for most students, they don't see that we can do both. We can do something related to language and then speak about it in class, and that all will help them to improve their language skills in French. And that's a little bit the tricky part for me, that they manage to see the task, what we do, as also a potential activity to speak French and to improve their French and to debate in the class. And the first evaluations, for example, from a few students were, okay, it doesn't have much to do with French, but it was fun. So I'm happy that it was fun, definitely, but it has a lot to do with French and with language also, because, just all the, and not only language, but also, that's why I spoke a little bit about semiotics, because all the alarms and signs and stuff that we hear, it's also part of semiotic world, if I can say this like that. So, and it has to do with Lausanne. The alarm sounds in Lausanne are not the same as in Geneva, for example, or as in France or Belgium. So it has to do with the local soundscape. And also, to me, I had too little of this, but it was also interesting to hear students saying what they miss here in Lausanne, of their usual soundscape. But for many people, like usually half of the class, they already live for a long time in Lausanne or in Switzerland, so they are now used to the sounds. And I try with them to take again this distance and to analyze what also the process they went through since they arrived, for example. That's also interesting to me, that they can also have a distant look on their own experience as foreigners in Lausanne, and also in this idea to make them feel legitimized as French speakers in Lausanne, despite their accents, because we all have accents. There is also this ideology, but there is no zero accent. Everyone has one. So just the point is to feel legitimized with your own accent at one place.
Thank you. Maybe time for one more last question. Un'ultima domanda. Eine letzte Frage noch. Okay. Then
Thanks a lot.
Of course, yes. And then otherwise we have time also for questions then in the break. Yes. Thank you. So we can move on with the next talk of Angehauen. Thank you.
I need a little bit of help.
Waiting for technical adjustments. I say again that Angehauen has an expertise in musicology, school music, Germanistic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You see the presentation? The picture? Thank you.
Thank you very much to all for the invitation to Lugano, and many thanks to the team that prepares this wonderful symposium. I'm very happy to be here. It's a great pleasure and to be here and to discuss about sound sustainability with you. And now I'm occupied with topics and themes around awareness and listening concerning everyday life in school. I'm a schoolwoman.
And in my paper, I want to introduce you into some thoughts about the thematic of sound sustainability within activities throughout the school year. We collected the activities we tested in our school into a whole school year, and we feedback them, and I want to introduce you firstly in the different chapters of my paper. The first one is to show you in a few words school as a learning area, then the pedagogical views in this project on the phenomena of time, pedagogical time, and open teaching, and then I want to show you the project, the auditive activities throughout the school year, under the theme of resource silence, or how noisy are we, for different groups, learning aims, and so on. And the fourth part is to resume and do a summary under the aspect of sound sustainability, and to refer on the other pedagogical and didactical aspects I noticed here. At first, school is a learning area, you know. The general legal frame secures contents and aims. They are given. And the specific curriculum of each of the schools organizes education for every student and helps to plan lessons for the teachers and for all other persons. But there are not only the frames, but you have liberties and freedoms impacted by didactical and methodical margins. You must find them, you must use them in school. And I saw a source, it was very old, from Johann Amos Comenius. He was reflecting about pedagogical time in these words. In German ist die richtige Zeit für die Arbeit, muss klug bedacht werden. Wie am Baum, alljährlich aus jedem Auge nur ein einziger Spross, ein einziges Reis hervorwächst, so wird des Menschen beharrlicher Fleiß innerhalb 20 oder 30 Jahren bis zu einer gewissen Tiefe und Breite gelangen. This is Dr. Magna, and I can't translate it in this poetic form, but I subsume it under. You must cleverly think of the perfect time to work, respectively to learn, as only one shoot grows from a tree every year. Human's hard work comes to a certain quality within 20 or 30 years. That's all day working in school. Yet we have long phases of reflection and long phases of learning, long life. My question is what time and temporarity mean in such projects who go over a whole year. And the intensive pedagogical discussion at the end of the 20th century was to have the contrast between, to line up the contrast between linear and pedagogical understanding of time. Linear time means efficiency, controlling, mechanical thinking, and so on. And the pedagogical view is a self-organized encounter between world and individuum, reflecting contemplativeness and cyclical recurring of experience. It comes again, and it grows deeper. And the consideration of individual competence and timing. For example, also slowness. It's a wonderful factor of enlarged spaces of acting in other forms. What to think about the realization in school. Tension between phases in which a student feels totally in present time or in a flow-like condition. Learning not to be self-determinated, but students must learn to be not self-active, but also in frames. To experience time with a certain awareness, feeling oneself having time to reflect, that's the other part, and increasing productivity by slowness. That is a great tension and a great challenge. I want to give you a view to the thing of open learning. First, the traditional learning you know perhaps is focused on the teacher, and open learning means self-organized, interactive. Traditional, orientated on the average, instruction, schools close in itself. On the other part, individual learning capacity, experience, space for common activities with students, teachers and parents, and experts from outside the school. And the status of discussion, it was very interesting. 1974 in Deutsche Bildungsrat, this means the highest educational committee in Germany, there was the call for participation and self-determination. It was formulated by Erwin Schwarz. He was a famous educationer in the north of Germany. And he said, you must encourage young people to learn self-organized. You must encourage them to be communicatively and in relationship to life. A change between instruction and construction, and not as a contrast, but as a didactical double principle, which is balanced. And learning must always have to do with real things. That is very important. And the best remark he did was the inspiration must come from the teacher. That if the teacher is stimulated, you can stimulate your students and your pupils also. And the 1918 discussion was, the actual discussion is the question with inner differentiation, open concepts of learning, new arrangements of classrooms, differentiation of interests, and inclusion of actual political themes. And now the status is a habitation of co-constructive concepts of learning, and a great variety of pedagogical ideas represent the central political idea of education. There's much room to do such things in school, self-organized. And a last view to rhythm in school. What does it mean? A changing of tension and quietness, moving and standing still, regularity and accentuation, activity and break, work and recreation in a periodical changement and recurrence. And we want this form that the disciplines are in balance and are involved in these projects. And now the central question of the project was silence or resource and how noisy we are. We worked organized in different disciplines, using their specific methods, in learning groups, different ages, different levels, and working in everyday lessons and in special phases. The concept for the whole year needed stability and consequence, continuity and transparency, responsibility for the whole project for all participants, you see later on. And the aim was to professionalize the part of the school, this part for the school program, to have a secure thing you can return on. The third part of my paper, I show you in little words the 5 projects. The first project was a very nice project, beginning in the year, January, winter time, it was cold, and the group was causes music and art, young students in the age of 15, 16 years old, and the aim was to enlarge their visual and audio perception. We had a course combined from arts and music, and we wanted to give them the worth of reducing outward influence to get understanding images, sound message, connecting aesthetics and society, and understanding the significance of audiovisual media. That's a high aim, but the little project comes near to that. The impulse was, be in nature for half an hour without your mobile phone. Stand still without any contact to the others in the park, at a tree or the sea, and so on. Return to school without talking and write down your thoughts, ideas, impressions you had in the park. What we saw in the results were very surprising. The students' texts they wrote had depth, creativity, and also a touch of poetry. They didn't only describe the winter atmosphere, the cold, and so on, but also moments of loneliness, friendship, love, thoughts about life in general, their own future and plans. We as teachers were very surprised and touched with the intensity this little time in silence developed. For all a fine beginning of a year with auditive projects, and we were very happy that it could be in this way. Project number 2. Between January and April, May, you have a phase of everyday working, and you have the Easter holidays, and we were preparing the Noise Awareness Day. Together with the team Biology, Arts and Music, we create offers to all the students and the teachers. We made exercises out of, you know it, the sound education from Mary Schaffer, but it was renewed by Justin Winkler, and you had little tasks, what you could do every day, your first sound, your last sound, go to the market and go to shops, what's the sound there, and so on. It was very, very nice. We made a little book, and we offered them. We made sound walks inside and outside our school, and the impulse to observe one's own sounds and noise while working in the classroom, singing, drawing, painting, discussing, playing, doing sports, or being in free creation. And the documentation of the situations and the discussion was very, very nice, and it was open. You had no levels or worshipping the one or the other, but they discussed very openly about this experience, and we showed the parents and the other teachers and the other disciplines our results. The third project took place after the summer holidays. It was a project in cooperation with an institution outside the school. We call it in Nordrhein-Westfalen NUA. That was Nature und Umweltschutz Academy of Environment and Nature. And they came with a mobile classroom. They call it Lumbricus. And Lumbricus is the name for the little worm, flexible worm in the earth. And they are very flexible with their office they had in the bus. You have you have a day full of experiments and experience in differentiated group. For example, measurements of sounds and noise around the school, auditive tests inside the bus, visualization of sound outside the bus, and documenting these activities regarding documenting and publishing. I show you the bus. It was very professional with panels of sun on the roof. There the student at work, little groups here they are working on. And this is a map of our region around the school. You see the school in the center. It's a little bee-forming building, and you see the metal points in it. And the people, the young students, came up with their things, and they made measurements and put them into colors. Red is very noisy, green is like silence. They put it on the map, and then we discussed the map with teachers and also with parents and other people who are involved. You see them in the measurement and the activities with the Lumbricus bus. A very nice project with an institution outside the school. Okay. The fourth project with experts with our town. In the beginning of the new school year, there was a cooperation with a hearing aid specialist, and the group was class 5. The theme in music was music around us, in biology, the form of the human ear, and the experts' themes was what does hearing mean in general. In what way do defects on the ear develop, and how can you coach and protect the ear? It was a very nice day. And it was a win-win situation, and also our pupils knew how it was to work pleasure with different disciplines in school with very young people. Yes. The last project was a shortened for further education for teachers. We go out to school and we talked about the experience, and also the young teachers were very interested under the title of my contribution. Did you already listen today? And they deepened it by exchange of experience, sound works, importance of hearing in different disciplines. and they learned modules of everyday work, rituals of listening and training of awareness. The reflection, the pedagogical time and open learning is very, I think, very well involved in this working over a full year, and there is enough space for common activities with other students, parents, and experts from outside the school. And the students are the essential part of the process, opening school to the city and to the region. Learning and working in rhythms means orientation, freedom and balance, secures planning for teachers, students, and headmasters, contains linear cyclical learning in a spiral curriculum, and communicates possibility because the modules and projects can adapt to the different groups and needs and respect the capacity and needs of all participants. It enables regular cooperation with different disciplines, opens the system school, gives credibility, and persuades power by the pedagogical solidity, and persuades by contextualization, consequence, continuity, and transparency. It transports a general meaning of education which contains, beside the power of each discipline, the worth of social, emotional learning in each personality. The project restores silence, or how noisy we are, developed in a stable element of the school program. We feed it back with the teachers and the parents and so on. And it gives space to different ages, learning groups and levels with their individual needs. Planning and reflecting about learning in rhythms means realization, sound stability permanently because of the feedback. And if we look back to Johann Amos Comenius with his opinion about learning, the process of education needs time, patience, and passion. Let's go on. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anke. Questions to this talk? Yes.
Thanks a lot. It's very interesting to hear what. To take the other teachers with you on the boat, or did you have to work a lot and to convince them?
I think everybody who works in school needs the opinions of other teachers, other colleagues. You must find a team which is on your side and which will have the work with you. You can share the work, and then the stress gets lower. But you can't. We have a collegium of 85 persons. It's very large, and sometimes they say, "Oh, fine, yes, very interesting," but they don't want to involve. That's the reality. I don't lie. And but if you have a team, it grows up in the stability, and the team must be. We had a team from 8, 9 persons changing, and that's a nice number to not to give up in the challenge. Yes, it is. But you know, it's a visual thing, and the reality is hard. But you must step by step. And I'm very happy that these 4 or 5 projects are in the stable school program, and then we coached the young teachers at our school, and they acted in the way, and they found their own way. Yes. Please, other questions.
Yes, thank you for your beautiful presentation. And a very small question. In one of the previous slides describing a rhythm in a school, and you mentioned activity and break, and work and recreation. If you can help me to better understand the differences between activity and work, or between break and recreation.
Okay.
Thanks.
I told about the rhythms in school you need. You need when you your question is how to realize break and activity in such learning, or I understand it in the right way?
Yeah,
Or maybe because of similar
yes,
concepts
as an
to
Italian
express
speaker, for me it's
something.
not
Yes.
very clear the difference between activity and work, and break and recreation. Maybe it's
Okay.
a trigger point, but just for my understanding.
Yes, I hope I can't answer. I can answer the question. If you have different groups and different interests in the group, you need a rhythm between their own thinking and their own coming slowly and learning, and you need phases of very hard pushing on their learning, and therefore there is a changement between their own timing, and they organize their own timing themselves in the group or for themselves. And recreation means also to sit there. You know, the children, they have an input and then they're sitting there, and you feel that are reflecting, and in this silence brain works. It's wonderful, and they come again in the learning phases again. For me, it is not a real contrast. It's a balance between the two status. I don't know the word. Yes,
No,
it's,
thank you very much.
yeah, yes. I can confirm the well-found point of your question. Yes, that's cool, but you must be encouraged to do that. You must accept that they're sitting sometimes in such projects, and they are thinking and gazing. That's the worth. That's the moment learning is real. Okay? Yes.
Thank you, Anke. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One more question? Thank you, Anke. And there is...
Have you finished the couple of presentation now?
Yes.
Because I invite you for technical reason, because I suppose now there is some kind of greetings from the director of the Academy of Fine Arts, but it's better to do all together in the Studio 5, because otherwise here we should connect with Skype and at the same time as there. So I invite you to join in Studio number 5, which is right in front, and we hope that Daniel team will be for.
Thank you. Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna Maria.
Thank you, Anna Maria.